to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
And me, Rob. Let's talk about some of the NFL news in the Giants in the pregame. What's going on next week? Well, this weekend.
This week.
Woof. It's here.
This week of football, but technically it's next week because it's on a Sunday. But guys, we got football.
Woo!
It's about time. Real football. I just hope we're this excited at the end of the game. But we got real football here, guys. It is time. All this waiting around into the BS of OCAs and training camps and preseason games. No, the real
thing. It is here.
It is time. And you know what that means, guys? That means it's time for our first preview episode here of the real season.
All hail the New York Giants!
There we go. So we got a lot of news to go over also with the game there, because there's been a couple of breaking news here since Monday as well that we got to go over. So first off, we got to talk about the story that was talked about all last season, the story that's been talked about all off season, the story that's been official in a very abrupt and non-celebratory way.
Yep.
Brian Daboll's calling the plays. And this was something that was, like I said, all last season was talked about. You know, you go back to the Arizona game, which was at least the second half of that game was the most exciting the team looked all year long. Brian Daboll was obviously calling the plays. He never wanted to admit it for some reason. It came out in the offseason that during multiple games, they literally took the offensive play calling away from offensive coordinator Mike Kafka. And then all offseason, the talk was, is Kafka going to back? He doesn't like Brian Daboll. Is he going to come back? You know, is he going to be like Wink Martindale and leave during the season? He goes to interviews for head coaching jobs. Like, okay, well, maybe he becomes a head coach somewhere. And then you really can't stop him from leaving at that point. And then he doesn't get him. And then the Seahawks request to interview him for the OC position. And let's be honest, guys, they don't request that unless they know he wants to interview for it. Let's be very frank about that right now.
Yeah.
So guess what? Giants turned him down. They refused to let them. So if it was up to Mike Kafka, let's be honest, guys, he probably is not on the Giants staff right now. Probably not. They gave him a little extra money. They're calling him the assistant head coach to make it look like he didn't take the job because he got offered something else. But let's be honest, guys, he doesn't want to be here. That's a little scary out of one of your, highest, ranking members of your coaching staff, but he just doesn't want to be here. And now we take away the play calling for him for the year. Now, I'm not saying it's the wrong move to take away the play calling. Let me be very clear on that. What I am saying, it's the wrong move to have a lame duck offensive coordinator that doesn't want to be there, then take away his play calling abilities. And it just looks like something the Cleveland Browns or the New York Jets would do.
You're not wrong, but at the same time, if we win 5 games this season because Kafka was calling the offense, all the calls, would we call for his head and saying, why didn't Brian Daboll take away his play calling abilities? Because guess what? Because we would be. You're 100% right. Because guess what? It's Daboll's job's on the line as well. It's not just Kafka wanted out.
Yep.
Let's be real. This third season with Brian Daboll, there's a good opportunity. We don't do well. He may not be a Giant.
Yeah, no, the heat is on. But it's definitely. I mean, listen, guys. He had a great first year. People got on him on the second year. A lot of the coaching staff hated him. I'm going to tell you point blank, though, guys. He did not do a bad job coaching this team last year.
No,
I don't care what anybody says. That team did not stop fighting. And we dealt with some serious injuries all last year. And a lot of the games we lost even were close. We lost a ton of games by a touchdown or less. Or a couple plays difference is a huge difference in the outcome of the season.
Well, look at 2 years ago because we won those games.
Reverse, exactly.
Yeah.
Put the thing down, flip it, and reverse it.
Ooh.
Yes, a little Missy Elliott on you. But, I like this that he's making the play calling. Let's be honest. We hired this guy because he's supposed to be an offensive quarterback guru. He got a ton of credit for making Daniel Jones look serviceable in 22, and it all came crashing down last year. Where is the truth in this matter, guys? Is he an offensive guru that is like one of the best offensive minds in the NFL? Or is he the guy that had a team fall flat in their face last year? Somewhere in the middle is probably the truth in this. But I got to say, I would lean towards the offensive guru part. And I wasn't extremely high on the hire when we got him, guys. I'm not going to front and say otherwise. And listen, we didn't even have the podcast back then. So I don't know how I can lie and tell you I was. But I wasn't because the places he went before Buffalo. And there wasn't really a lot of quarterback development and stuff like that he got credit for in Buffalo. But I think he's done a good job here with this team as a whole. I think the team likes him. The team roots for him. The team wants to run through a wall for him. And one of his best skills is his offensive mind. So you might as well use it. Give him the chance to be the play caller. And you know what's going to be great next year when Mike Kafka's contract is up? Because I believe he's got 1 year left in that deal, and that's it.
I believe so. Yeah, it's a 3-year deal.
When he leaves next year, you're not changing play caller. That's one of the things people I haven't heard really talk about that. Like, you're not changing the play caller because Daboll, I don't think, is going anywhere unless there's a monumental collapse this year.
Yeah.
So you might as well go ahead and enjoy having back-to-back play caller, back to years the same play caller. Because continuity is key in this league. And if we keep changing out who we have calling the plays year in, year out, you're going to lose that point blank. So,
100%.
So like I said, I don't hate the move. I didn't like it in the mid-season last year, but I don't mind it right off the bat. That's a good move. So let's get into contract talk here, guys, because we're talking about a certain contract all week. Get the details a little here. But the details are getting out there now with Adoree Jackson and his deal. And guys, this is team friendly. This is really team friendly. I'm kind of shocked actually by how little this was, but I guess I shouldn't be because Adoree Jackson was available in the beginning. Late Labor Day weekend. I mean, it's not like he was getting offers, everywhere, and he wants to continue playing, obviously. So the number he got there, they're saying it's $1.75 million cap number. 1.7 million cap number overall with no guaranteed money. None. He's got a $1.5 million salary. He's got $250K additional he can get in game roster bonuses. And he's also got bonuses apparently available based on playing time and interceptions, which is interesting. Remember, we talked about this, the last couple of years with him on the show. The issue that I think this coaching staff has had on the whole with him, besides the, he's taking off plays and stuff like that last year, which was a whole issue unto itself. But for the whole 2 years, the issue they've had with him is the lack of interceptions. So it's interesting they wrote that in. And this is all according to Dan Duggan, who announced all this on Twitter here. So obviously he's got some pretty good insiders there in the Giants building. And what he said was, the numbers are unknown to him as far as what the playing time incentives are, what the interceptions incentives are, but that they're not easy to obtain numbers is what he's hearing. So it's not like, oh, you got 2 interceptions, here's $1 million. like you're going to have to do something legit. Yeah, like you're going to have to do something legit. So listen, if that's what it is, this is as low risk a move as it gets. And I still think the move reeks of desperation, but it's still not the wrong move to make, especially at that number.
Yeah.
So good move by the Giants overall now. Let's get into one last thing here before we get into the game coming up on Sunday. And something happened on the Hard Knocks here with the Chicago Bears that's going on right now. that's kind of taken Giants Twitterverse and social media by on a storm here, because Joe Shane was on there for a moment because they showed a clip of him at the Clemson Georgia game this weekend, and Joe Shane had an exchange there with the Bears GM Ryan Poles and kind of slipped up a little, people are saying. So maybe he forgot the mic was on. Maybe forgot that Hard Knocks is recording. I'll say this.
Forgot it was actually crunchy peanut butter. Who knows?
Yeah. I just feel like the man was just on Hard Knocks. What's the chances he forgets? You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't just but a couple months ago that he had one of those microphones hooked up to him 24/7 on the clock. I have to doubt he didn't know.
Yeah.
But here's what he said. Shane said, "Gotta be nice, not looking at the and then stopped." And Ryan Poles is back to quarterbacks. And then both gentlemen just kind of give a little laugh there. And Ryan Poles says, hopefully it stays that way for a long time. Now, a lot of people in the Giants land are kind of taking that as Joe Shane saying point blank, must be nice because I'm not in that position where I still have to look at quarterbacks because Daniel Jones is my quarterback. And I can see where people would read into that. But I think, again, this is a case of the people that hate Daniel Jones taking this a lot further than it has to be.
Yeah.
Like, Joe Shane's looking at his quarterback options just in case Daniel Jones of last year. Who knows what's going to happen this year? And he's got to be prepared for all angles. Got to prepare for everything. And they just did a lot of work on guys in the draft this year. So he's been looking at quarterbacks now for the last year like you wouldn't believe. Of course he's tired of doing it. It's the most important position on the field. You don't think he wants a better option?
Yeah. We can see it. The guy that's getting paid buku bucks definitely sees it.
Yes, exactly. So, I just feel like this is one of those scenarios that people are poking at because of the Jones hate, and it's being made to a much bigger deal because it may be just Jones. Might be Joe Shane talking to Ryan Poles. Maybe who knows what kind of relationship they have. I've never heard of anything prior, but a lot of these guys have worked together in the past. They've obviously met together multiple times. But it could just be Joe Shane saying point blank, like, maybe prior conversation him and Ryan Poles had where he was like, oh, I'm so sick of looking at these quarterbacks. Let's be honest, we all knew he was taking Caleb Williams, but he still had to do his due diligence on the quarterbacks. And it might be Joe Shane saying, hey, must be nice you're done with that now. Like, who knows?
100%. Like you said, these guys have all been in the league a long time. Like, yeah. People forget about the coaching staff in general and the scouts. They all intertwine. They all see each other. They're closer with each other. Like, they're not to say they're, I guess work friends, but at the end of the day,
this
they
isn't
see each other.
It's like Dan Morgan.
yeah, but they see each other a lot, and it's not just with the Bears, but when you're out scouting other people, I'm sure they come across the same guys to see each other, and they probably have side conversations all the time. And this is probably one of them.
Yep. And what's interesting is, so Ryan Poles was very briefly, very, very briefly, looks like a player. I looked this up to see now while we're talking. With the Bears, ironically enough, as well, in 2008. So he's still young. He's 38 years old. He's younger than me. For a GM, that's pretty damn young. So 2008, Joe Shane was the national scout for the Dolphins. So maybe there is, like I said, a relationship there. We don't know. But I feel like people are just reading way, way, way too much into this, guys. Now, if Joe Shane was like, hey, my quarterback sucks, I wish I had one. There we go. That's newsworthy.
Yeah.
That's newsworthy. He's not going to say that. Even if he thinks it, which who knows what he thinks. But even if he thinks it, he's not going to say it, guys. You know, especially anywhere there's a microphone. He knows there's a microphone there. He ain't stupid. So, like I said, much ado about nothing there. So we'll worry about actual news when actual news breaks. That's
Till then, let's be goofy.
You know what is news though? The fact that we're playing a game this week. So let's get into that preview here. So we're looking at different aspects of the game, guys, that we thought you guys might want a little bit more of a breakdown on and kind of our thoughts on here. So first thing we got to talk about, of course, is the man we just talked about a moment ago, the big topic of this whole season, basically. And that's Daniel Jones versus the Vikings defense there. Now, DJ basically made his reputation to a certain degree in 22 off of what he did to the Vikings in the playoffs. That's his biggest game of his career. That's probably his best game of his career. You know, and it's one he's, you know, definitely didn't hurt his chances of making that money there. That's for damn sure. So, yeah, you know, people are kind of like, oh, Vikings. Oh, Daniel Jones did pretty good against them. That was 2 years ago, Vikings guys. That was 2 years ago, Daniel Jones. You know, and that was
really both ways.
One of the worst defenses in the entire league back in 22. We said it here on our show. Daniel Jones beat the crap out of bad defenses. The Colts, the Vikings twice. It's like, you know, he wasn't playing great teams towards the end, but he was getting credit as if he was, because people just saw him finally put up some numbers. We were that desperate for production. We got excited, you know. But
do you blame us? Do you blame us?
But Daniel, no, I don't. Oh, but Daniel Jones, he's facing a Vikings defense that's got some issues, especially in the secondary there, guys. I mean, they've lost a lot of corners this year already. So, you know, the big tragic one, obviously, is the rookie corner, Adoree Jackson, who died in a car crash. They also lost Mekhi Blackman to a torn ACL. But they also signed Stefon Gilmore. But Gilmore's also 33 years old. So is this the year that, you know, Father Time takes its toll on him finally?
Yeah.
But the big thing is their secondary is not that strong necessarily. You know, it's not. Like, people that think otherwise, they need to look a little more into that roster and see what's going on. And it's just one of those things that if you want to pick a spot to pick on them, guys, that's where it's at. It's that secondary. It's weak. I mean, besides Stefon Gilmore, who basically is going to be their version of Patrick Peterson from 2 years ago, a guy who's, you know, at the end of his career just trying to play as well as they can, as long as he can, which I got no issue with. Make your money, enjoy playing your game, do it.
Yep.
But definitely on the tail end of the career, definitely towards the very end of the career. The other guy they got big name-wise in the secondary is Harrison Smith, who's 35 years old, guys. 35. Even for a secondary, that's getting up there. I know, and I feel bad saying, because, you know, 35 is 7 years ago for me. But it's like, that's for football years. That's a long time, guys. So this is a secondary that can go ahead and, you know, I'm not saying they can't do anything. They can do some things, but this is not an elite secondary we're facing, guys.
Yeah, I mean, we take into consideration what we have on our offense, running that field, and the speed. Does Father Time trip you up? Yeah.
And, you know, the rest of it, we'll get into some of the stuff before, but it's also our wide receivers. Guys, we got some depth at the wide receiver position. There will be people open. BJ can just spot them somewhere on the field. We'll find out that part of it. That's always been his issue.
If he's not staring at Malik Neighbors the whole time, he might see Hyatt way downfield.
Neighbors, Robinson, Hyatt, Slayton. I mean, it's like, you know, you got some really decent young receivers here for him to throw to. Plus, you got on top of that, of course, you got these young tight ends now. I mean, Theo Johnson, I'm kind of curious what he is going to be in this league. 'Cause I really think still, I'll stand by what I said prior about him. He's a boomer bust. Obviously, we're hoping for boom, but he's a boomer bust pick. That's what he is. He was an athletic pick that didn't produce in college. Those are boomer bust. And, you know, Bellinger obviously still pretty young too as well. There's these young weapons everywhere for this guy to throw to. He's just got to have the time and the vision.
The vision is the key part.
Yeah. You know, all the talk is going to be about the Vikings offense this week, because the Vikings offense is missing a lot of guys, obviously. Again, J.J. McCarthy's out for the year. You know, Jordan Addison is suspended. T.J. Hawkinson is injured. There's a lot of guys out that are big name guys for their offense. almost every weapon except for, obviously the really big one we'll get to in a little bit, Justin Jefferson, is out. At least in the passing game. So, I mean, the big thing, though, is that, yes, that's the talk because of the injuries. But this defense isn't stellar either, guys. Jones has an opportunity in this game to show what he can do and to show he can be at least 22 version of Jones again. Because I think if any of us are expecting, a MVP caliber season out of him, then you're smoking crack, because that's ridiculous. Like, that's absolutely insane to even think at this point. But if we can just get game manager 22 version of him, this team could do some damage.
You did a lot of damage this year.
Yeah. So, am I saying Super Bowl caliber? No. Sneak in the playoffs like they did in 22. And some people will probably say we're crazy for saying that. But guys, in 22, you would have said we're crazy too.
Y'all did.
I would have said it. I thought we'd just barely not make the playoffs. What we had in our recommendations there on the season, we're pretty much dead on the win total. I thought we'd just barely not be able to sneak in there, but we did. We did a little sneak and got in there. Maybe that happens again. But this is going to be a game where we can really develop an opinion on what Daniel Jones we're going to get this year. Because while we all trashed him for that preseason game, every single one of us, and I don't mean just me and Rob, I mean every content creator out there, every fan out there, every media member out there, like, he got lambasted for that game against the Texans. It's a very small sample size, guys.
Yeah.
For a guy who hadn't played football in quite some time.
Yeah, since he messed up his knee.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's not played.
So, I'm still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, Daniel Jones could be 22 version again. I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he can be a Pro Bowler or an MVP or anything crazy like that. But he could be a game manager maybe. And if he can do that, and he can just chuck the ball deep every so often to Slayton and Hyatt, get the ball on a nice slant route over to Neighbors who can get some yak yards and make a big play with his abilities, this could be a decent season for Jones. Good enough to want him back next year? Probably not. But enough that he'll be able to extend his career somewhere else.
Correct.
And I hate to say it that way as a ceiling, but that's probably the ceiling for Jones this year. And it's got to start now against this Viking defense that's just not stellar.
Hey, DJ, the Raiders are calling you.
Let's talk about his big target here. The rookie, the big name here. 6th pick in the draft. Malik Neighbors, who's going against that Stefon Gilmore character we talked about earlier. Listen, we know Stefon Gilmore. We have faced him multiple times now. We obviously went against him twice last year when he played for the Cowboys. We played against him the prior year when he was a Colt as well in that game. There's the Snow Angel game for Kayvon. We've seen him. He's a good corner. If you think he's not, just go back to a month ago when all the Giants fans were clamoring we should have signed him. They all were. It's just a matter of, does that detract people? The fact that he's 33 years old and maybe he's not as scary as an opponent as he used to be. I'll tell you this: Neighbors is not going to be afraid of him.
No,
right or wrong, he's got that attitude of he's better than everybody else, and you want that kind of dog fighter mentality at that point in a receiver. They need it. Receiver and corner, the most one-on-one kind of positions in this league. You're wide out there on an island with just one-on-one. You got to have that me mentality. You got to have that dog, and he's got it. I don't think he's going to be afraid of anybody if he faces this season. Honestly,
no.
I don't think it's within his personality to have that. He has succeeded his whole life at football, high school, college, even so far in training camp at all. He expects it of himself, and LSU has that pedigree of amazing receivers. OBJ, the Vikings' own Justin Jefferson. Chase over in Cincinnati, like, they are a team that produces legit wide receivers. So you can look at this team, and this is what I liked about him, and why we talked about even him versus Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft, because you gotta love when you're getting a top prospect that's coming from a school that's known for producing that position in the NFL. And that's what we did. You wanted the truth to why we didn't go get a new quarterback? We went with a safe pick. That's the truth. Because Joe Shane and Brian Daboll wanted to make an impact this season. And this is the guy to make that impact.
100%.
So this is potentially the best wide receiver we've had since OBJ. I don't think that's crazy to say. I just don't want to say he definitely is because he hasn't stepped on an actual NFL game yet. Like, I hate when people make those kind of statements.
We will have to see what he does on Sunday.
Yeah. And it's a great barometer. Like I said, he goes right into it with a savvy veteran corner who looked really good last year. But he also looked really good as like the second corner in the Cowboys defense.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. Bland was the top one. So we talked about that with Adoree Jackson, where he came in and was our second corner for his first year with us because James Bradbury was at. People tend to forget that. People tend to forget that Stefon Gilmore was not the star of that secondary last year in Dallas. He was the star everywhere else he's been. And that's what gives me that moment of pause to go, is he starting a decline perhaps? 33, most guys aren't playing corner at 33 anymore. They're moving over to safety. Or their career is going to be over soon. And he's a special talent, and special talents tend to last a little longer. I'm not so sure. I'm really not, and I think that we might not know truly how much of a barometer it is until a couple weeks from now. But it's still, he could have a lot easier matchups, than he's going to have here with going against Stefon Gilmore here. He could have a lot easier of a matchup.
And also, you could kind of reverse that again. Boom. Like, Gilmore could have a lot easier matchups as well because he's expected to be the number one corner in this matchup. And like we talked about, like, he was not the star in Dallas.
Yeah.
So,
well, he was a starter. He wasn't the top guy.
I said he wasn't the star.
Oh, the starter. Sorry.
Yeah, star. So he was the guy that went against number two. It's like he's covering Hyatt. Like, all right, maybe he looks good. He's covering, Isaiah Hodges on the practice squad, but he's covering him. Like, yeah, he's going to look good. But, like, you're going against this young buck who's going to be, like, possibly one of the, like we said, just next OBJ or one of the next best things. Even, like Zay Flowers. Do you think Gilmore could cover Zay Flowers?
Yeah.
Like, this year, like, not to get it off, Giants subjects, but I'm saying, right there. Like, Gilmore's taking a step back, most likely.
At his age, it's expected. It's got to be expected. Listen, all power to him. I ain't hating on him. Like, if he wants to continue playing at a high level and has that ability to do it, go for it, man. Play as long as you can. Like, but 33 is really old for a corner, guys. Like, things do not typically go uphill at that age. They start going downhill. And the guy on the other side, let's say if Stefon Gilmore doesn't shadow him, is Byron Murphy Jr. Now, you guys probably remember him because he was a Cardinal for a few years, had a 58 PFF grade last year. Like, he's a legit player in this league. He's a guy that when he came out of college, I remember him coming out there in Washington, and I didn't think he was a bad corner necessarily. I just didn't think he'd be a really good one. He'd be like a depth piece kind of thing. Well, he's now starting for them as well, again, because of the issues they've had at corner. You don't go into an offseason expecting one to die in a car crash and one to get a torn ACL. Like, that's really not, that's like, that's not normal. Yeah. I would call it Murphy's Law, but considering Byron Murphy is, Murphy there. But that's, you can't plan for that. And now they have, like I said, a guy they brought in at the very tail end of his career with the very tail end of the offseason, and another guy who was more of a depth piece kind of guy, and they're kind of forced to start him because of everything going on. And your star safety is now 35 years old, and again, probably should start taking a step back talent-wise. That's 35. The fact that he was still doing it last year at 34 even is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Because he still had a decent season with him. So, like I said, we'll see what happens here, but I like the fact that at least a big name is there on the Vikings for Malik Neighbors to go against. So we get a better idea and a better feel for what he is and who he's going to be this season and how well he matches up against legit NFL talent. Because even if he takes a step back from last year, Gilmore is a legitimate NFL corner in this league. He may not be a star anymore. We'll see what he is this year, because year by year with guys that age, you gotta question that. But he's a legitimate NFL player at the worst, and it's a nice test for a week 1. So speaking of tests, we got a really big test here for our sophomore corner, Deonte Banks. This man, whew, did he draw the bad card there for week 1? Going against Justin Jefferson, who I still think is at the very worst the second best wide receiver in this league, if not the best. You could say Tyreek Hill has an option of calling himself the best.
I think he is a legit statement to call himself the best.
Listen,
if you want to listen to fantasy football fans, you're saying CeeDee Lamb, which I think,
no,
and that's not me being a biased Giants fan.
No, I think that Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson are on a league of their own at that point, and then you got some guys after them, and CeeDee Lamb falls in that. AJ Brown for the Eagles does as well. Like, I'm not trying to hate on division rivals here when I say it that way. They're just not the same level. But Justin Jefferson was literally on pace for his best season last year, guys. If it wasn't for him getting injured, you'd probably still be talking about him as the best at that point there. So, he had over 1,000 yards last year, guys, in just 10 games. That's pretty damn impressive. He had more receiving yards per game than any season in his career. Keep in mind, this is the offensive player of the year in 22. Like, the guy was on pace to break records in 22, and he still had a better season. He just had a midseason injury
with some bad quarterback play as well.
That definitely didn't help him. That's for damn sure. But I mean, he still averaged the last 4 weeks of the season 119 yards per game. So if you're thinking, because it was a hamstring issue, that hey, maybe it's going to slow him down, maybe there's going to be an issue, like, he came back from last year already. Like, you can't sit there and say, oh, slow start, is coming back from an injury. No, the injury was something midseason. He came back, and he still was balling out when he came back. Now, hamstring issues can flare up. They can cause issues later on down the line. People that have hamstring issues, they got issues sometimes. Let's remember last year with, Darren Waller and his hamstring issues. And that was still overflow from his Raider days at that point. That wasn't a brand new injury. That's just the way hamstring issues are. They tend to linger for some people. We don't know with Justin Jefferson because this is the first time he's really had that kind of injury. So we'll have to see what happens with him. Now, Adoree Jackson missed 3 games last year due to injury. In those games, Banks was clearly the top receiver, top corner in those games. So I'm using those games a little bit to judge what Deonte Banks did as a rookie when he was a top corner in this on the season here. So in the game, CeeDee Lamb put up 151 yards against him in one game. 151, guys. That's not good. That's like on pace for 2,000 yards, kind of bad. That's
well.
Really
CeeDee
bad.
Lamb also put over 1,700 yards on the season last year. Yeah. So let's not take that away.
Oh, I'm not saying that he did it. A scrub did it to him. I'm not saying that by any means.
I didn't say
17 games, 151 yards. I love to do the math, so I did it. 2,567 yards in the season. If he had done that for the entire year. So I think CeeDee Lamb had 1,700 yards in the season, I think, if I'm right.
Oh yeah, 17 change. I think
yeah,
it was 17, almost 17.
So 1.5 times what he did, and he's one of the best receivers in the league already. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's a little crazy there. So then you got the other 2 games was against Terry McLaurin. So Scary Terry, 133 yards combined in the other 2. Now that's 94. Hold on, my math is way off on that. Woo, what did I put on my notes here? So 133 yards. That's 66.5 yards per game. On a season, that's 1,130 yards. That's about average what he puts up. So overall for the 3 games, 94 and 2/3 yards per game. I'm going way deep in the woods here, in the weeds here for the numbers, I know. But I'm just trying to make the point that he didn't look good, guys. So, like, people are acting like this is an automatic, like, hey, we got Deonte Banks, he's going to be CB1. And I think there's a lot of confidence in some people that I do think is a little misplaced, to be honest. And I try to hate on Banks, even though, listen, we've said it before, we weren't fans of the pick of Banks when we made it. I'm not trying to hate on him. I'm just trying to give you legit, like, here's what happened last year. We expect him to be better this year because it's his second year. That's 100% the case. I also will say very loudly, he looked much more comfortable in zone coverage last year. When
big time.
Towards the end of the year, and I think this was part of the issues that was going on with Wink Martindale. Towards the end of the year, Banks looked so much more comfortable in zone coverage, and you saw it because Wink was getting forced to use zone coverage. I swear that was the issues he was having with Daboll, because it was quite obvious that he was getting more agitated as the season went, and there was a whole lot more zone coverage towards the end of the year. That's when he started getting interceptions. That's where he started looking a whole lot better.
You're not wrong.
I think Shane Bowen's a better fit for Deonte Banks than Wink Martindale ever would have been. Because Banks can do man coverage, yes. He's not an exclusive man coverage corner. He's not. He didn't do that in Maryland. He didn't look comfortable doing it in New York.
What did we say when we drafted him? He was an athletic guy that was great at zone, that could move around the ball, and they were going to try to train him to do what we want to, but like it just didn't fit with Wink's defense. Like, it's not a knock on Wink. Like, right? Like, dude likes to blitz a lot.
But Wink, screw him. Seriously, the way he left last year, seriously, screw him.
Oh yeah.
He's like a child picking up his toys and threatening to go home. Go home, man.
Oh, that's exactly what he did. It's not threatening. He just like
he did go home. That's right.
Yeah,
he didn't even quit. He just left.
Yeah, he went home. Like he was air cartman all the way.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, it's to me, it's a little crazy. You know what they did with him last year, and you saw the difference once. Like I said, Wink was kind of. I have no inside information, as guys. I'm not trying to be like breaking news, but I think that's how it went down. I really do. I think Wink was getting forced to go out of his own comfort zone for the sake of his players, because I think the players went complaining to Daboll, and Daboll backed them instead of backing Wink. That was part of the thing with Xavier McKinney last year, you know, talking trash as well without giving names, talking about coaching staffs and issues there. I think that's what a lot of that was. So I'm curious to see what Banks does in his second year in a system I think is going to be better suited to his needs. But I don't think we can sit there and say he's a number one corner. I don't think we can. He's our number one corner, but I don't think he's earned that right yet to say he's a number one corner talent.
You're not wrong for saying it, because obviously the play of last year, he was also a rookie last year. Yep. So we've said it countless times last year when we drafted him. Corner's not the position that you normally excel at your first year. Like, you need 2 to 3 years possibly to be like where you need to be at. So you got a new defensive coordinator. It looks like he's going to play into his strengths. Like, it should be a lot better year for Banks, being a little bit more veteran in the position and playing into a system that he feels more comfortable with.
And I'm hoping they give him the help. I really do, because he's going to need help. And guys, again, he's running.
It's against JJ, yeah.
He's running an absolute gauntlet here in this season. He's got Justin Jefferson to start. He's got CeeDee Lamb twice, AJ Brown twice. He's got Mike Evans. Okay, like that's not Mike Evans is probably the most underrated. Receiver in this league, probably, besides Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I'll still say is ridiculously underrated as
unless you're a fancy player, then you guys all know.
But I mean, you got those guys there. You got Chris Olave he's going to face this year because we're playing the Saints as well. You know, like, he's got a freaking gauntlet.
The biggest help that he has against Olave is Derek Carr.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could say that too with Sam Darnold, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, this test is what I'm actually, out of all the things in this game, Number one is Daniel Jones. I want to see what he does. That's obviously number one.
Yep.
Malik Neighbors, I'm actually pretty confident in, which just sounds weird as a Giant fan to have confidence, but I'm pretty confident in
Especially
him.
you.
I think he's going to be something special. I really do. And I like I said, I've been proven wrong before. I'm not going to be that guy and say I'm never wrong, but I just think there's something special about this kid, and I think he's going to do good things. Deonte Banks is the guy that I'm second behind just, DJ there. Curious to see what he does. Because his play is going to dictate a lot of what happens this season, guys. Because without him, it's Adoree Jackson, guys, who's going to be in this game. And we talked about it before. I think he's going to be a fake starter, so to speak. There, like they'll probably start him just to give him the start on the ticker there. As Robbie asked that. Appreciate you coming on the show, man. But yeah, it's like if he doesn't succeed, Adoree Jackson didn't look great last year, guys. Then that pass rush really has to help them big time. Yeah. And they're going to need help in the deep at that point to stop the the long throws at that point too, and make teams dink and dunk. If he looks bad, guys, it's going to be a long season. So, like I said, I'm giving you guys a little bit of fear on Banks, but it's not coming from a place of hate. It's just a place of concern. I want this kid to succeed. I want him to be a Pro Bowler. I want him to be the best damn corner in this league. Because I'm a Giants fan first and foremost. He just worries me.
Yeah.
He just worries me. And I think
and it's fair to say.
I think he'll be a legit starter in a corner in this league too. I should say that. I'm just not sold on him being a number one yet. And that's my biggest concern with this season. Again, besides DJ. I gotta get that asterisk to anything you talk about there. So why don't we pay the bills real quick? What do you think? Pay the bills time? Pay the bills.
Enjoying the show? Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. Buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
All righty, guys. So we have a couple more things to talk about with this game. There's so many weird aspects to this game. It's not even funny, guys. Like, this is one of those games that have twists and turns and things you wouldn't even think about because there's so many changes to the Vikings roster even this season. So, like, the big one is the big addition they had. Well, it should have been the quarterback, but he got hurt. The big addition they got is Aaron Jones, guys, who pulled a Brett Favre and went from the Packers to the Vikings now.
At least Brett Favre with the Jets first.
Is that really at least?
He softened the blow just a smidge before he jammed it right back up.
Is that like at least he went to the Jets as a positive thing? I don't think I've ever heard that phrase before. But so Aaron Jones, though, he said he was the big signing there for them. So last year there was a little bit of an off year for him, guys. So 11 games, 652 yards, a 4.6 yards per carry average, and 2 touchdowns. Leaving the fact that 2 touchdowns is for this guy is really low. Like, this guy has led the NFL in touchdowns before. Like, he is a guy that you put on the goal line, he's probably going to get in if you give him 1 or 2 chances to do it.
Oh, he gets it in.
But that's tied for his lowest yards per carry average in his career, guys. The guy turns 30 years old in December as well, and his age, again, makes you question, especially at running back. Some of y'all might say we're crazy for saying what I said at that point about corners and safeties in 33 and 35, but there's no one who can argue with me that a almost 30-year-old running back is not old in this league. That's old in this league. But he was also
AP.
But he was also never a workhorse back. I was talking about him on another program that asked me to come on and talk about the game there, and we were talking about him, and I kind of compared him to Jamal Charles. And I don't mean that like he's got a similar game to Jamal Charles, or even a similar talent. Jamal Charles was a better running back than Aaron Jones will probably ever be. That's not a disrespect to Jones. He was just a really special player. Especially if you don't know about fantasy football. That was the guy that was the fantasy football guy for a while. But what I mean by that is he was never expected to carry the offense. but he just did very good when he was given the chance to. Like, he was a 5 yards per carry average guy for most of his career. That's just what he is. Same as Jamal Charles was that way. He wasn't a volume runner. He was the guy that got only 12, 13 carries a game.
I was gonna say 15 at most.
Made his most of it. So he averaged 12 carries per game in his career, by the way. I did look it up to verify that. So he's got 400 less carries than Joe Mixon, who was in the same draft class. 400. That's a lot of carries, guys. That's a lot of carries.
Well, this NA offense was a little different.
So now, Sam Darnold, obviously, again, a quarterback for this game. Sam Darnold. He's not going to have the same protection that Aaron Rodgers offered him for all those years in Green Bay, or even Jordan Love last year. He's going to be the main focus. It's going to be him and Justin Jefferson. If you can stop those two, which is a big if with the Justin Jefferson thing, obviously.
Yeah, it's best say.
If you can contain somewhat Justin Jefferson and stop Aaron Jones, this is a really bad offense potentially.
Potentially. And one thing you have to do respect a little bit with Aaron Jones is that he is a guy that will catch the ball in the backfield.
Yep.
So he does have those moves, which is why he was great with Love and Rodgers. Like, they both like the pass dinky dunk, no place, off to the side.
Not quite, though, the moves like Jagger, though.
No.
Not quite. But this is going to be the first time, though. Again, he's going to be one of the focal points of an offense. And I know some people say I'm crazy for saying a guy that led the league in touchdowns at one point was not a focal point, but he wasn't the focal point. The passing game was 100% the focal point of Green Bay, guys. That's what it was. And he goes into this role now where he is a focal point for the first time of his career at 29 years old. It makes you question these things, So between his age, the increased focus on him, the slight drop in production last season, I don't think the Giants should have a problem containing him. I really don't. Maybe I'm being overly cautious because I got the endorphins of week 1 in my brain right now, where I'm just excited to see the Giants play football, and I'll probably be negative about them next week. Maybe that's what's going on.
I'm going to be negative one real fast because look at our look how well we blocked the rush the past couple of years.
Yeah,
we've made the moves. It's time to see it come to. But what if we didn't make the right moves? Aaron Jones could still potentially not. I'm not going to say he's going to run 200 yards on us. He's not going to do something crazy, but
yeah,
he can still get over 100 yards, which
he could. And again, he's proven before he can do that without a lot of touches.
Yeah. So depending on how our defense looks and our offense looks, which any game, if you will, but just saying, like, Aaron Jones could have a good day, even though it may not be the greatest day if running back.
There's 2 guys that I'm counting on to really help contain him. And I don't think I'm crazy for it. I think it's the 2 obvious guys. Like, anybody listening or watching at home is probably going, I know who he's talking about. Dexter Lawrence and Bobby Okereke. I mean, I think the Giants, if they're smart, put Okereke into almost like an RB spy mode.
It's
again, no Hawkinson, no Addison, and Sam Darnold is your quarterback. I'm double covering Justin Jefferson, and I have Okereke as like a spy, basically, on Aaron Jones. Because I know if I stop those 2 guys, this offense is going to be really bad for the Minnesota Vikings. Really bad.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm not going to say it's a guarantee we stop him because he's still got something in the tank. I'm not sure how much he got in the tank, but he's still got something in the tank.
It's a smidge bit.
Yeah, he's got maybe a quarter of a tank left. Like, he's still got something in there. He's not talentless at this point. He's not Ezekiel Elliott.
There's some Dallas fans really hoping for that guy to come too.
You know what I called him on a show last night? I called him the Dallas Cowboys backup center.
Give Dak lower protection.
Well, no, remember that the playoff game ended against the Niners.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm not going to be overly confident say it's a guarantee, but I think we'll handle him. I think we'll handle it well. I mean, he'll still get us some yards because they're going to hand the ball off to him a lot, I think. But if we can stop him at like a 4 yards per carry average at that point where he just doesn't break any big runs, and
3.8.
if you do that, if you do that, you're still getting a 3-and-2 kind of scenario. You're still third down plays. And you can't run. Eventually, you're going to have to count on Darnold to make some plays. And he's proven that at 3 different places now. He's not the guy to do that. So I think we're good there. I think we're good. So let's get into the topic that I know a lot of y'all want to talk about. And this is the big one here. And this is a big one for the Giants for the last, 10 years or so. So big that Rob won't even move, apparently. I think his computer froze on him. And that's talking about the Giants' offensive line versus the Vikings' pass rush. Because we talked about DJ. We talked about how we want to see, DJ succeed this year. Because, again, we're Giants fans. Why would you not want DJ to succeed? But we also know that he's got to stay upright to make plays. He's got to. And I can't sit there and say he's going to be able to make plays if he can't be, because he's proven that. He's Carr at this point from when he was in his Houston days, Patrick Ramsey in his Washington days. Like, he's been hit so many times. And you couple that with the fact that he has trouble reading defenses, he needs good protection to have a chance to succeed. And I really think this year is going to be a much better offensive line. I'm a huge fan. We've talked about it endlessly. I'm a huge fan of the Jermaine Illuminor move. And I'm so glad they put him at right tackle. That's where this man belongs. You put Runyon in there, who we'll have to see how he comes back from injury and everything there. But you put Runyon in there, and he's a really good pass blocker. Really good pass blocker there. You put Greg Van Roten in there, who very familiar with the blocking scheme. You can make the case he might be the worst guy on this offensive line now. But he's a guy with experience playing next to Jermaine Illuminor last year in Las Vegas. And looked pretty good doing it. And you got JMS, who, again, battling injuries all last year. If this kid can get healthy, I still think he could be a good center in this league. I'm not ready to even close to ready to give up on this kid yet. And then you got Andrew Thomas. Can you imagine Andrew Thomas now with a decent guard next to him and John Runyon? Can you imagine? How many guards have you seen next to Andrew Thomas? So the big question is, though, how did they handle this Vikings pass rush specifically, guys? And it's a whole different pass rush than it was last year or 2 years ago, even when we faced them in 22 twice. So DJ Wanham had 8 sacks last year for them. He was their second best pass rusher. He went to Carolina in the offseason. Daniil Hunter, obviously their big name pass rusher, 16.5 sacks last year. And that's just a regular year for him. That's what he does. He does 12 to 15 sacks usually in most cases. It's a little bit of an uptick, but it's not unheard of for him to do that. He went off to Houston, though. No other player on that roster last year, guys, had more than 3. Now, obviously, if they lost those guys, they signed somebody to replace them. So Jonathan Greenyard came over from Houston, ironically enough, since that's where Hunter went. He left in free agency. He had 12.5 sacks last year. That was his only season, though, over 10 in his career. And like I said, he's definitely a downgrade from Daniil Hunter, who, again, one of the best pass rushers in football. The big question with Greenyard is, can he repeat last year's performance? Or was that simply his career year? You get that with guys who rush the passer where all of a sudden get that random 10-sack season. Leonard Williams, anybody? It happens all the time in the NFL. And that doesn't mean that you can count on them to do it year in, year out. That could be his best one. And if this guy turns into a 6-7 sack guy, you're talking less than half the sacks, which, again, sacks aren't everything. I get it. But it's just a huge indicator on massive plays, which make a huge difference in the game sometimes. And Hunter is so much better than Greenyard. It's not even funny. So much better. This is a big downgrade, guys. It's not a bad pickup in free agency. And any other team probably signed him. They go, look, we upgraded our pass rush by getting him. Guy had 12.5 sacks last year. This is one of those rare cases that it wasn't really an upgrade at all there, guys. Andrew Van Ginkel was their other one. You may remember him last year as he became kind of a bigger name there with the Dolphins there as one of their pass rushers. Had 6 sacks last year for them, also a career high. He also only played 66% of the defensive snaps for the Dolphins. So you can make the case that, hey, this guy's going to be a starter on this team. If he had 6 last year at 66%, I'm not going to say you get 9 because you're not going to play 100% of the snaps. Maybe 7.5, 8 sacks, which is a decent player. That replaces what they lost in Wada when he went to Carolina. But he's 29 years old, guys. Van Ginkel is not a young player. 29 years old. That's not to say he's ancient. We're not going back to the corner talk and the running back talk we had earlier. But 29 years old, you don't typically continue towards your peak. That is your peak usually. So, he's been basically a pass rush specialist for the Dolphins that they bring in to attack the quarterback. And he's going to be asked to do a bigger role here in Minnesota because that's what they need him for. And I don't think Van Ginkel is a guy you can count on being an amazing pass rusher. He's got some skills, but he's not going to be an amazing pass rusher. I think this is actually a decent first game for this offensive line to prove that this is a different offensive line than it's been the last couple of years.
100%.
If they don't look good against the Vikings, guys, we're in trouble.
A lot of trouble.
We're in trouble. And again, Jonathan Green is a decent player. Again, I think it was kind of a career year from last year. And Van Ginkel is a decent player. But they don't have that big pass rusher like they had the last couple of years with Hunter. They really don't. And this is going to be, like I said, it's going to be a good gauge for where we're at. If this team's going to be anything this year from the offensive line. And guys, I'm going to sound crazy saying it. I am hopeful for this offensive line.
You're hopeful twice in one episode? Drew, what is wrong with you? Are you okay?
But how weird does that sound to say as a Giant fan? I am hopeful about this offensive line. And a lot of this is based on Brasillo, who I'm still a huge fan of this hire, guys. He's succeeded places he's gone. And you brought him his right side of the offensive line over. And you brought his fullback over.
Yeah.
Like, you're giving this every chance to succeed.
It's like, hey, what we've done for the past 10 years is like, hey, succeed. Go over here.
Yeah.
Just die in hopes and dreams. And now this year, it's like, hey, Priscilla, here you go. Oh, you want your right side of the line? Here you go. You want a fullback? What, protection for the quarterback? Here you go.
Yeah.
Like we just offered.
Crazy. So, yeah, like I said, guys, I'm looking forward to it. So, now I know you guys are probably wondering, who do you guys think is going to win? So we're going to give our wins and losses and our picks tomorrow night, guys.
Ooh,
so
you are just.
We are going to withhold that. We're going to withhold that. That's going to be part of the picks episode. So if you want to hear that, that's going to be on tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And all you veterans, it's
shameless plug.
It's a nice switcheroo what we did last year.
Hey, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because we used to plug and play this episode all the time. Like, go back and listen to what we said. Or
yeah, we're reversing. We're doing another reverse it here. I'm not going to do Missielity again for you, but we're reversing it. What we are going to do today, though, is Rob and I talked about this in the last episode. He made a very valid point here. What we should do on Wednesdays is we should give you guys our picks for the Thursday game, since the Thursday game is going to be going on when we're live on Thursday. So, first game of the NFL season is
the AFC rematch.
The Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Taylor Swifts. I mean, Chiefs.
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough, exactly. So, the Chiefs are a 3-point favorite, and the over-under I have at 46.5. Rob, you won last year. in our
Excuse
challenge.
me.
Just do a like that, like it.
Let me just clear my throat and let everyone know what Drew just said.
Listen, I'm assuming I won the first year we did this, but somebody stopped keeping track for us.
Oh, stop.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, conveniently for you.
No, conveniently that you stopped doing it. Anyway.
I'm gonna go through all previous episodes.
What's your picks and who you got? Well, you can go for it. Listen, we'll take the extra downloads. What picks you got?
Listen, week 1 is always going to be crazy, no matter who you got, where you're going to go with. If you're in one of the survival pools, do not pick this game unless you got a huge set of Randy Marsh's testicles after that one episode when you're walking around the wheelbarrow, because it's a hard pick. But I am going to go. What was that?
Let's not mention testicles and hard in this.
I think this is going to be a fantastic game.
Yeah.
This is going to be one of the better games of the year. And it's not sad to say because it's the first game of the season, but there's going to be a lot of good games this year. But this is the AFC Championship rematch come to fruition. And I do think the Chiefs win, but I'm going to take the Ravens in the points. And man, putting me in a spot. I'm going to have to go over on the points in this one. And it's going to be a close one. It's not going to be much. It's going to be like just barely over those points. It's going to be like right around like that low 50 margin, like maybe high. I might get right there, 49, 48.
So I'm going to do something a little odd. And I'm going to remind people who won in the playoffs with the Chiefs and the Ravens. And that's the Chiefs, because the Ravens suck in the postseason. But you know what they're really good at? The regular season. So I got the Ravens to win this, because I'm still – listen, there's some changes that happen in Kansas City this offseason. There are some changes. They lost their top corner. You know, they added a couple of wide receivers that we're not sure quite what's going to happen to that room now overall. They lost Kadarius Toney. That's worth at least 5-6 catches for the year.
Lost points.
But yeah, guys, I'm going with the Ravens to win. I think this is a team that is, you know, set to repeat what they did last year in the regular season. They just got to prove they can do something in the postseason finally. But I think the Ravens win. Obviously, the Chiefs are the favorite, so I got the Ravens in the spread at that point. I'm going to go under on the points. I don't think it's going to be a crazy high-scoring game, actually. I really don't.
I think
it'll be close to it, though. It's going to be a close call, but I think it's going to go just under.
What do you think? Low 40s? So you're thinking like what? I guess 17 to 21. You're thinking like
this could be like 20. This could be like 24 to 20 is exactly what I was thinking. Actually, I think
But you're sitting there right there. You're playing your roulette right there because all you need, one more field goal, then you're over. Like that's. I think we have the same demeanor about this game. It's a very close game.
Yeah. And it's always hard week one, guys. Like week one,
yeah.
we'll probably say this 10 times tomorrow's episode. Week one is the hardest one to pick. I always tell most people, if you're not an avid gambler that just loves the thrill of adding that into it, wait till week 2 and start gambling then.
Yes. And Drew, you're actually not wrong, because like Kansas City Chiefs surprised a lot of people last year because they were like top 5 defense, and Baltimore is the top 5 as well.
Yeah.
And you're going into 2 high-powered offenses. So you're looking at like some.
I'm just wondering, the loss of speed is the biggest thing that scares me about the Chiefs. Like the Chiefs are counting on a couple of big name defensive players and a bunch of nobodies. So not just nobodies, but a bunch of averages otherwise. You know what I mean? Like there's no big weakness on them. But they had Snead, who's a top flight corner. They had Chris Jones, who's obviously a top notch pass rusher / defensive tackles. They do move around a little more than people like to say. You know, they got a couple guys out there that have done good, but they've lost guys in the past and they've succeeded. So I still think they're going to be very good. I just think there might be a little bit of growing pains there in the beginning at that point there. And I do think that the Ravens are set, guys. The Ravens are set.
You might be, but what also at the beginning of the year last year, it was Kansas City's offense wasn't as explosive as it was.
No.
But now you got Pacheco, and it actually is number 2 is going to be like splitting time with him in week 1, which is apparently like big deal because this guy might be a stud. Rashid, like this is in the fantasy world. I just went blank on the guy's name, but you got to think about
right?
Rashid. The Rashid Rice is the receiver out there. He's going to be their number 1 most likely, and they picked the number 1.
I mean, we're saying he's got some legal issues. So, all righty, guys. So we'll be back again tomorrow night for you guys, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, giving you guys all our picks for the week. And listen, guys, we don't cop out like other shows do. We do every single game, the points, the spread, the over/under. We give them all to you at that point, and we'll tell you guys, hey, we feel really confident this one, or hey, we wouldn't go near this game. So
let's be real, Drew. Like, let's not toot our own horns. Like every single game, I'm tooting horns right now.
Keep tooting until I give you Beano.
Last year, we were both well above 50%.
Yep.
And everything we picked.
Exactly.
The only thing we weren't over 50% with was the trifectas.
Trifectas.
We were about a third % of that. Which,
the NFL trifecta being the wins, the spreads, and the over/under in the same game. Yeah, that's the only thing we weren't 50% over. So, guys, like I said, we're goofballs. We know what we're talking about just a little bit there. So, so stop on by tomorrow. Listen, if you're watching the game, just put it on mute and watch us. At least listen to us while you're getting the game going. It's a good combo at that point. So let's be honest. Most of us hate the announcers anyway.
Is it Chris Converse tomorrow?
And I feel like he gets shoved down. I thought we're supposed to like him. I don't think he's that great.
No.
And then he hired his kid. Like, we got a Nepo baby on the booth now too. Like, I'm not wrong. He's not that good either. So it is what it is.
In the family.
It is what it is. So, all right, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow night. You said 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, we are live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and of course, Rob's favorite, my link. Now, the best way to see us is on YouTube. So, if you're looking for the best, YouTube is the best. Nice and simple to use. We get a lot of different segments we do on there exclusively as well. So, pop them by, hit that subscribe button for us. Give a share, give a like. Tell a friend. And of course, we're always the next day available on all the audio podcast platforms. So Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, all the big ones there, Pandora. So if you haven't already done that, if you'd like to listen to podcasts on your way into work or out of work, hit the subscribe there. If you're on Apple, give us a review as well. That really does help us out, guys. So appreciate you guys for watching as always. And we'll see you tomorrow night. As always, Giant fans.
Go Giants!
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you. Please,